Welcome to the VB Toolbox. In this tutorial we'll be continuing our series on working with Microsoft SQL Server in VisualBasic.net. In previous videos we have learned how to query our database after connecting to it and insert new records into our database. I'll be picking up where we left off before, just as a quick recap. In previous tutorials we created a SQL control class which we created an instance of in our form, our main form, and we learned how to check the connection status, make sure that we can connect to the database, and created a run query method. Clean that up. And in part 3 we learned how to add a member using the ExecuteNonQuery method for our SQL command. What we will be doing in this video is sort of making this add member sub obsolete by creating sort of a globally useful method for executing non-query statements in our database. Once again, this tutorial assumes that you already have a SQL Server database that you can access, and what I am using for these tutorials is a simple database with a forum structure that I call SQL apps. In here I have a few small tables. One is the members table. This is primarily the table that I've been using in this series. Kind of where I hope to go with this, just to give you sort of a preview of things to come, is, we'll be creating a user manager tab in our form, and with this we'll be able to browse our records in our database, create new members, modify members, delete members. So that's kind of where I'm headed with this. So let's go ahead and get started. Actually, I don't want to close that. I'm just going to move that off the screen. First thing we're going to do is, in our SQL control class, if you want to open that up, you can double click it in your Solution Explorer. We're going to go down below the add member sub that we created in the previous tutorial, and we're just going to create a new sub called, whoops, not public, off to a great start, public sub data update. Excuse me. And I'm going to add one parameter to this called command, and that will be our SQL command that we want to run against our database. And in the future we'll use this for all of our data updates. My apologies for my voice. I feel like I'm kind of losing it there. First thing we'll do here is add a try-catch statement to catch any errors that may arise while our command is running against the database. So I'm going to do a try. That will generate the code for that. And as before, the first thing we do is open a connection to the database. So I'll say SQLCon, that's our connector that we created up here. SQLCon.open. And I usually just close up immediately afterwards, so I don't forget to do that. So I do SQLCon.close, and we'll just be working between those. Next up, we want to create a SQL command. SQL CMD is what we created in the previous tutorial. I'm going to say equals new SQL command, and then we will reference our command parameter and the SQL connection. And that allows us to pipe any command query that we want through this. Next thing I'm going to do is execute our query, but I'm not just going to execute it like we did in the previous tutorial here, where we just said SQL command execute non-query. This sub or method will actually produce an integer value based upon how many records were updated in the database. So it's actually kind of a useful, has a useful output if we want to kind of be able to monitor how many records are changed when we run our command. So I'm going to say dim change count as integer, and then I'm going to set that equal to the SQL command dot execute non-query. So not only will it execute the non-query, it will then produce a value that we can reference and sort of generate a little report from. So this is actually ready to go. That's very simple. All of our update statements, insert statements, and delete statements can be passed through this. Just like all of our queries can be passed through this run query method that we created. So next step, if there is an exception, I want it to report back to me. I'm going to say message box ex.message. That'll capture any errors that may arise from our commands. And just for fun, if we'll go down below our close here, I'm going to say, just to generate a small report and let us know that something occurred and that our routine ran successfully or did not. I'm going to say report results. Then I'm going to say if change count equals 0, then message box, the item you wanted to update could not be found. Okay, lets us know that no records were changed when we ran our query or our command. Else, message box, change count, and we're going to concatenate on records affected. So that'll tell us whether our command actually changed anything. So that's really all there is to it. This is a very small and useful command sub. I'm going to go ahead and just leave this add member here for this video, but in the future we'll probably just get rid of all that since it's now unnecessary. So let's go ahead and bounce back to our main form here. And we're going to add a new tab, and we'll just call it delete. So let's select our tab control here, and then right click on the tabs and say add tab. And now we can go to the properties for that. What we want to do, sorry, my window here is kind of small. Probably don't need so much debug window down here. We want to go to the tab pages collection, open that up, and for tab page 3 let's just change the text here to delete. And I'm going to kind of keep this short and sweet. It's going to be a very simple form. So if we click on our new tab, we get a nice blank window there. And I'm just going to add a couple of controls here. I'm going to add a label control and change the text on that to enter name of member you wish to delete. Okay. Easy enough. Next up, I'm just going to add a text box. I'm going to go ahead and just stretch that out. You can align that however you want. And finally, a delete button. And I'm going to change the caption text on that to delete member. Easy enough. And let's rename our controls. I'm just going to call this TextBox txt delete user. And the button I will call cmd delete user. Okay. So my objective here is to hit the members table in my database and filter by whatever member or username that I have in this box and launch a delete command at that. I'm just going to go ahead and launch the app here real quick. So we'll take a look at our query tab that we created in a previous tutorial. We'll say select star from members. This might take a moment for me. Like I said before, my SQL Server is on a very old, slow machine, so it takes it a moment to connect up. As you can see, here is my list of users. So I could select, some guy 2 here to delete. We can go back to our delete tab. Now we haven't actually added a command to this yet, so let's go ahead and do that next. If you want to double click on the delete member button that we created, and what we'll do here is we'll say if txt delete user dot text is not equal to blank, meaning that there is something in it, because we don't want to launch a blank command, then we'll prompt the user with a message box with a VBS no to ask us if we actually want to delete the user, so we don't accidentally delete something we don't want to. So if message box, do you really wish to delete space, concatenate on the username that we supplied in the text box, so we'll say txt delete user dot text. Oops. And add a little question mark at the end there. Finish off our text. And then we will want a VBS no, so just type yes here and it'll give us the option. Okay, so if that message box equals result yes, then we want to launch our SQL update. So to do that, we will just be calling the new sub that we created in our SQL control. So we'll say SQL, referencing our instance of our SQL class that we created before, dot data update, and here's where we will put in our delete SQL. So we'll say delete from members where, that's our filter, the username, referencing my username field from my database here. Okay. where the username is equal, and then we have to supply a single quote, and then we'll close off our string here and concatenate on the txt delete user.text, and then we have to close out that single quote, and our statement is done. So delete from members where the username is equal to whatever is in the text box. So now we should actually be able to launch this. Let's go ahead and start that up. So let's do this one more time. I'm going to select star from members, run the query. Here's our members. Just as a test, I am going to first try to delete someone that is not in here. So I'll just put in a name, Roger. Hit delete member. Do you really wish to delete Roger? Yes, I do. Oh, wait a minute. The item you wanted to update could not be found, so Roger does not exist in our database or in the members table. So if we want to reference, how about some guy 2? Let's try that. Some guy 2. Hit delete member. Do you really wish to delete him? Yes. And then it says 1 record's affected. So some guy 2 was found in the database and deleted. So still shows up here. Let's go ahead and rerun this query. Notice something is missing. Some guy 2 has been successfully deleted. So we know that our table deletion is working. That's very simple. So all we did is add a new sub that we can launch these commands from, and future commands, inserts, deletions, and updates, and then we called it from our form. Now in the future we can get a little more complex with our form. We can add a lot of this functionality into the same one by adding a menu strip with various options to modify members, browse the records, and all those goodies. So hopefully you'll stick with us, and if you found this helpful, please share it. I appreciate y'all coming along. Thanks. Bye-bye.